All rise for the jury.
Welcome back to Justice 4. We're your hosts. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Sam.
January 2022. 8-year-old Elizabeth Struhs suffered for 5 days through a 100% preventable death, while her mother and father, along with members of their cult-like church, the Saints, stood by and watched.
The police, government, are trying to pin us for murdering Elizabeth, which we didn't do because we're Christians and we don't murder people, obviously.
5 days.
5 days.
Nope, not ready. Not ready for this. I at least prepared you a little bit.
I've been talking to you guys about this.
I don't think that's true. I don't believe you.
Also, I think this is our first Australia case that we've covered. But I've noticed that we do have a few listeners in Australia, so...
Hey guys, thanks.
I'm going to do my best to pronounce everything. Please don't come for me. Honestly, probably my favorite part of this entire episode was listening to Pippa Bradshaw on A Current Affair, which is a news station in Australia. And Pippa has covered this story extensively from day one. I could listen to her talk all day long, but also, like, her name is so adorable, and Americans are really boring when we name our children. Here's just a sassy Pippa clip because everyone needs to hear it.
Okay.
Hi, Brendan. My name's Pippa. I'm from A Current Affair. We just wanted to ask you some questions about your church. Is it a cult? Is there anything you want to say?
We do not give permission for any of this footage to be used for any purpose.
Permission.
All right, jury. Buckle up and grab a piece of paper or a whiteboard or honestly whatever you have to write with. Because a few months ago, 14 people were sentenced for the murder of 8-year-old Elizabeth Struhs. Yeah, I said 14. But don't worry, I have this little easy-to-follow flowchart of all the people.
She showed this to me before we started recording, which was not that long ago, and I'm still confused.
It's okay. It'll be a lot less confusing, I promise. We're headed to Toowoomba, Australia, which is a city in the Darling Downs region of southern Queensland. It's known for its cathedrals and universities, as well as its national parks and rainforests. I didn't know there was rainforest in Australia.
I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense, but I feel... Don't look like that. We're not geography people.
No, we're not.
All right? Don't forget.
I know when most people think about Australia, they just think about the outback.
Yeah.
But like the coasts are beautiful.
Yeah, definitely Google this part. The pictures are gorgeous. I have a few to throw up here, but...
The only reason I know it's gorgeous is because of that one Mary-Kate and Ashley movie.
Yes.
That's why I know it's nice. And that's also why I know what,
Vegemite?
Vegemite.
That one.
Oh.
That's why I know what that is. Because I remember, I think it was Ashley took a bite of it and everyone was like, oh she's going to hate it. She's like, oh, that's so good.
Okay, yes, I remember that.
That's the only reason why I remember that. But otherwise, I think everyone thinks of the Outback.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
Also, I've watched enough, I shouldn't say this, and he's an adult, I'm allowed to say, I've watched enough Robert Irwin to realize there is vegetation.
I'm an idiot. It's called Our Lips Are Sealed because they go under like protection.
That was really the Our Lips Are Sealed one was the Australia one?
I guess
Yeah,
so.
they were in Sydney.
Wow. That makes sense.
Now we know.
Elizabeth Struhs grew up in a big family with 7 brothers and sisters. She was a happy, fun-loving little girl who loved the colors pink and purple. She was always smiling and full of energy. She wanted to be a doctor when she grew up so she could help other kids just like her. Unfortunately, her parents, Jason and Carrie, belonged to a cult-like church called the Saints. The Saints were formed in 2005 by Brendan Stevens, who attended the same church as Jason and Carrie. When suddenly, they all decided that this mainstream church that they were attending was corrupt. So Stephen began holding church services at his home, and they began to call themselves the Saints. The Stevens, like the Struhs, were a large family. Brendan and his wife Loretta had 8 children. Jayde, the oldest of the Struhs siblings, and honestly our new, butch lesbian icon of the show.
I genuinely have told people, recently, that I was like, no, my bi phase is over. It really was just a phase. And then I saw a picture of
Jayde
and I was like, maybe it's not.
You know. And that FBI agent from the Gabby Petito documentary. Oh.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
Yep.
Anyway, So Jayde Struhs actually has been very vocal since
Good.
everything. And she told A Current Affair that when they became saints, everything changed overnight. Suddenly, there was no more Christmas, no medical intervention was allowed, and there was now only one duty in life, and that was to serve God.
They wouldn't let medical?
No more medical intervention.
Oh.
If it's God's will for you to live, then you'll live.
God will heal you.
Oh, no.
In an interview with, I hope I'm saying this right, 730, or it's like 7.30 is like the news thing.
Okay.
There was no name like ABC or an affiliate. So in an interview with 730, Jayde said the saints also believe that a person is born a sinner and wouldn't be saved until they received the Holy Spirit, were baptized, and spoke in tongues. Jayde explained that the church was basically made up of two families, with random recruits here and there. She was highly encouraged to recruit people from school and bring them to the church. But it was hard to get people to join because of how extreme and close the group was, but they were successful a few times. There were a few that came for a meeting or two and went, nope, I'm out. The saints stayed a small group, but their already extreme beliefs were only intensifying as time went on, believing this was the only way to live and everyone else was wrong, which made Jayde's life extremely hard when she was 16 and realized she was gay. That's when she came out to her mom, Carrie, and told Carrie she also didn't believe in her beliefs and didn't want to be a part of this.
When she was 16.
Jayde was instantly met with Bible verses and praying, and then she was forced to sit with Brendan for hours while he preached to her, read her the Bible, and called her an abomination.
Pray the gay away.
Pray the gay away. This led to Jayde running away to a friend's house, and then eventually a youth shelter. She did come back once, but it wasn't for very long, and she was right back to the youth shelter again. Her parents and the church pretty much caught contact with her after that. Over the years, she tried to keep in contact with her siblings and her dad, though the saints made it very hard. And I was really impressed to read that she actually was allowed to visit occasionally. And when she did, she was allowed to see her siblings and be around her siblings. Something that highly religious families tend to do is when older siblings grow up and leave the house and decide that they can think for themselves, you're not allowed to come back and talk to the younger siblings because you're not allowed to corrupt them and ruin the control that's being...
I'm very surprised they let her come back.
Especially because, Jason was not really buying into the saints. Carrie was full-blown into it.
Yeah.
But because Jason wasn't being baptized and he wasn't fully accepting and immersing himself in it, Jayde wasn't really allowed to have a relationship that was close with him. That was her dad. They all lived in the same house. They hung out. But, it wasn't your normal father-daughter relationship, no matter how hard they both tried, because they weren't allowed to be like that. Because he wasn't baptized into the saints.
Who the fuck is Jason again?
The dad.
Carrie and Jason, the parents.
Brendan's the other guy.
Yeah, Brendan Stevens is the other head of the family.
Yeah.
I know. Jason and Carrie Struhs, Brendan Stevens.
I'm trying to keep this. I need to have that picture.
Right there.
Just so I can follow along. Jesus. Okay.
So, can't let the little ones get corrupted.
Wait, hold on. What? How?
So Jayde left.
Yeah, no, I get that. How is Jason part of the saints then?
Because he's married to Carrie. He just refuses to get baptized, but he's still playing his role in the church.
Ugh.
We'll discuss that part more later.
Okay. This is very much giving me deep Southern Baptist type.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
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 Ugh. Creepy. Because that shit's... Yeah.
So, and like I was saying, with Jason was not so much. I mean, Brendan and Loretta, Brendan Stevens and Carrie, they were very extreme in their views from day one. And Jason followed, except for he was not all about the no medical intervention. He thought that was a little too extreme.
Yeah.
And part of the reason he kind of refused to be baptized into the church. Even though Jason isn't fully on board with the no medical intervention and isn't fully extreme, that doesn't mean he has any ability whatsoever to stand up to Carrie.
Okay.
He doesn't. He is a spineless jellyfish.
Oh, he's not. He's a girl's girl.
No.
He's just a girl.
He's a pussy.
Girl. Hell yeah.
And I'm being nice. I'm being nice.
Cheers, Jason.
Him lacking the ability to have a spine or an opinion or authority became very evident in 2019 when Elizabeth got sick. At first, it seemed like nothing, but over the next 6 days, Elizabeth got worse, and Carrie was kind of keeping Jason away, wasn't really letting her see how bad, and was kind of lying to him. But when Jason finally saw her, and those concerns that were growing intensified when he discovered that Elizabeth was unconscious. So he rushed her to the hospital. He said, "Fuck you, Carrie." Go ahead.
Finish what you were saying. He said,
"Fuck you, Carrie, for refusing medical help. I'm taking her." He hit his limit.
Now I have a question. Just because I'm piecing some stuff together. You said she wanted to be a doctor to help kids who were sick like her. Was this like a chronic illness, or do we...
Wait a second. Just wait a second. With Elizabeth unconscious, Jason rushed her to the local hospital. And after arriving, she slipped into a coma and was airlifted by helicopter to the Royal Children's Hospital. There, Elizabeth was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. She'd spent the next month in the hospital recovering, learning how to self-administer insulin, and all about her new life as a diabetic. Carrie did not visit her once the entire time she was in the hospital.
That bitch.
Never even called to check on her.
Her own daughter.
Her own daughter.
God, I see where this is going.
Jason immediately called Jayde, and Jayde rushed to be at the hospital. She was happy. Her dad bypassed her mom and got her medical help. Jayde was also terrified of Elizabeth going home. After this, Jason fully takes charge of Elizabeth's health because Carrie couldn't care less about her daughter needing insulin to survive. And I wish I was being dramatic when I say that, but I'm not. Carrie and Jason were then charged with not providing necessities to Elizabeth. Carrie stood her ground that she was a child of God and God would heal Elizabeth, stating Elizabeth didn't need the insulin. Jason testified against Carrie and admitted he should have brought Elizabeth in earlier. Carrie was ultimately sentenced to 18 months in prison, and Jason got 6 months. But Jason wouldn't serve any time at all because he fully cooperated and testified against Carrie. And because he did ultimately take her to the hospital.
Snaps? Small snaps?
Eh.
Clap?
Carrie only ends up serving 5 months out of an 18-month sentence. But while Carrie is in all of her legal battle and serving her sentence, it was easier for Jason to monitor Elizabeth's health and her diabetes and making sure she was taking her insulin. He made sure the school knew to only call him for help. He took her to all of her appointments, the nurses and the doctors, so that they had a very loving relationship. They joked, they laughed. She was happy. And the school nurse even said Elizabeth was no longer scared of doing her own injections. Like, she was a diabetes pro.
She didn't 5, right?
She was 8.
Okay.
She didn't even cry. She was doing it on her own. She had this. But while Carrie was in prison, Jason was under immense pressure to become baptized into the church. Even though he still had no interest in being baptized into the church, eventually Brendan wore him down, and Jason was baptized in August of 2021. And so I took this part out, but then I heard it 2 more times after I took it out. Apparently after this, he began speaking in tongues not long after.
Jason?
Yeah.
Oh.
4 months later, on December 16th, 2021, after serving 5 months of her 18-month sentence, Carrie was released from prison. And this bitch had the audacity to look her parole officer dead in the eyes and essentially said, "I did nothing wrong and I will do it again." And then they let her go home.
Oh, okay.
From the day Carrie was released, she was encouraging Jason to have faith and trying to convince him to stop giving Elizabeth her insulin. Jason stayed strong, and he didn't listen to Carrie, knowing he'd failed his daughter once already. Homeboy stayed strong for 2 whole weeks. 2 whole weeks is all he could resist.
Okay.
Unfortunately, on January 1st, 2022, Jason gave in to Carrie and Brendan and stopped giving Elizabeth her insulin. For the next 6 days, Elizabeth laid on a mattress in the living room while her mom, Carrie, sat in another room and prayed. Members of the church prayed and sang over Elizabeth while constantly bombarding Jason, telling him to have faith when he wanted to give her insulin or take her to the hospital. For 6 days, Elizabeth laid on a mattress on the floor while her little body suffered immensely through diabetic ketoacidosis. Diabetic ketoacidosis symptoms often start quickly, sometimes within a day, making a person very thirsty, causing them to urinate often, eventually leading to vomiting and stomach pain. Symptoms also can include tiredness, weakness, confusion, shortness of breath. Jason, Brendan, and Carrie, along with 11 other members of the church, including one of Elizabeth's older brothers, stood by and watched for 6 days as Elizabeth's body tried hard to survive. They sat by as her body broke itself down in an attempt to save her, something not even her parents tried to do. It is an absolutely horrific way to die. It's slow, it's painful, and I have no idea how 14 grown-ass adults who claim to love this child could have watched her suffer like that. Not only that, but they then claimed that Elizabeth chose this. She chose this, and she was happy about it. In the middle of the night on January 6, 2022, Elizabeth laying alone on that mattress in the living room of her family home took her last breaths. When members of the church discovered her the next morning, they put a blanket over her and began praying for her resurrection, calling and texting all other members of the church to come over and help pray for her resurrection. For the next 2 days, the saints prayed and sang over Elizabeth's body, believing that God would bring her back. Finally, on the evening of January 8th, 2022, Jason Struhs called emergency services. When police arrived, they could hear singing and music coming from inside the house. When they entered the house, they found 8-year-old Elizabeth Struhs unresponsive, and it was apparent she had been for some time. One member of the church said they only called so that more people could lay eyes on Elizabeth to help with her resurrection.
Wait. You're telling me that they called 911 so that people would be like, oh my God.
Yes, they called 911 so that more eyes would be laid on Elizabeth to help with her resurrection.
They thought the more attention on her, the more attention God would bring to her
To bring her back.
her.
Now, I want to play you clips from people outside the house.
Firstly, though, I want you to be so fucking for real with me. The fuck?
Oh, I am so for real. 1000%.
Play the clips.
No one said she's dead. It was more like she sleeps now because we believe that it is only sleep. And at some point, God will rise her again in this lifetime.
Yep.
Because that's a promise. And then he is coming back again. You can't be a hypocrite. You can't say, I believe in the healing power of God and also giving her insulin. So it's like one way or the other. Do you believe it or not?
It wasn't an easy decision to do what Elizabeth wanted, but believing in God, well, I believe he would have healed it as well and will. So.
Do you think an 8-year-old is capable of making that decision?
Yes, almost. She was a very strong little lady, and this is what she wanted.
I know how absurd this all sounds.
Ugh.
And if that wasn't absurd enough for you,
No.
just listen to what Carrie, Brendan, and other members of the Saints, including Elizabeth's brother Zachary, had to say in their interviews with police.
God heals all. It's not extreme. It's just the word of God. God heals and we rely on God and we're entitled to rely on God. And there's no reason why I should put, or anyone else should put their trust in the medical system, which has failed, any more than they should put it in God.
Brendan, why did you let this happen?
It wasn't me that let it happen, and she herself did not want a medical intervention.
She's an 8-year-old girl, Brendan.
That is right.
She's not in a position to make that decision.
That's interesting, because in Victoria, I think 8-year-olds are entitled to have a sex change, aren't they?
We're not talking about Victoria, we're not talking about sex
Probably
changes.
the same in Queensland.
We're
So
not.
you are saying that 8-year-olds make their decisions in life?
I mean, you're a 60-year-old man who's lived a full life and has several adult children. This is an 8-year-old girl who's had to pay the price for you.
She doesn't pay the price. A dead person doesn't pay the price, they know nothing.
Well, she did throughout the days of agony that she...
How do you know she was in agony? You've got no idea.
We do, because we've had an
eminent person suddenly knows what she went through. They wouldn't have a clue, they weren't there. She had no outward painful suffering at all.
Can I ask, if you had your time again, would you do anything different?
No, I wouldn't.
All I can really remember, because we were praying and just doing things with the vision of God intervening. She was getting worse and worse, and by Thursday, she was obviously very sick, and then Friday morning she stopped breathing. The perfect amount of sun hits us, the amount of oxygen that we have to breathe, the temperatures, everything's perfect, so how can he not bring back or heal a body that he has made?
It upsets me, but I'm not losing my faith in God. I'm not ever going to think he's failed. He can still bring her back, doesn't matter where her body is. God can't fail, and I don't believe he has failed here, and everyone will still yet see some great miraculous thing happen.
I cannot tell you how it's going to happen, but I know that it's going to happen. If it turns out that this goes prolonged and endless possibilities of if someone gets convicted, whatever happens, we know that if we haven't seen the resurrection of Elizabeth at that time, we know there's more to come.
Yeah. So everybody in that house, full blown, just believing and digging in, and they did nothing wrong, and Elizabeth wanted this, and this was it. So on January 11th, Carrie and Jason Struhs were arrested for the murder of their 8-year-old daughter Elizabeth, and for her torture and failing to provide necessities. Months later,
I said,
Yes.
Yeah.
Months later, in July of 2022, after a lot of interviews and investigations, 12 members of the Saints were arrested and charged with Elizabeth's death. Jason Struhs and Brendan Stevens were charged with murder. The following were charged with manslaughter: Carrie Struhs, Zachary Struhs, Loretta Stevens, Andrea Stevens, Acacia Stevens, Camilla Stevens, Therese Stevens, Sebastian Stevens, Alexander Stevens, Kata Martin, Lachlan Schoenfish, and Samantha Schoenfish.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did Carrie not get charged
with murder?
With the murder because she wasn't in the room? Quote unquote.
Carrie didn't get charged with murder because she was not the one who quit giving the insulin.
But she's the one that convinced everyone else to do it.
So did Brendan.
So what I'm understanding is Jason got charged with murder because he was responsible for giving her insulin and he stopped.
Because What's-Her-Tits was in prison the whole...
Well, she was...
For the majority of it until...
Because he was her provider, yes.
Yeah, and Brendan got charged with murder because he was like the ringleader of the cult, convincing them to continue to not give her insulin.
And also, and because he multiple times was the blocking power of Jason, stopping Jason from giving her insulin, or doing that. The judge himself said that he believed that if Brendan had not stopped him, there may have been a different outcome. That Brendan was a driving force.
I'm honestly genuinely surprised about the manslaughter part also for all of those people, considering, one, okay, I'm probably getting too logistical here, but like, she did technically die of a medical issue.
Yeah.
I understand. I get it.
I think we're proving a point.
Period. I love proving a point because this would not happen in America.
Oh, hell no.
There would be so many issues with it because they would be like, well, there's no proof. Just because I was there doesn't mean I did anything. It was a medical thing, so it's not considered murder. Like, I just know.
They have like the bystander laws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which, keep that energy for a second because we're going to talk about some of that later.
Ugh.
All 14 members refused to participate in many elements of the trial, including not getting representation by a lawyer, refusing to make a plea, and refusing to pre-sentence report into their mental health. Like, they refuse to do any mental health evaluations. They refuse to get a lawyer. They refuse to enter pleas. They just refuse to be a part of any of this.
Can we, like, legally force them to at least get a, like, a mental, like, a psych eval? Because I would love to see that for all of them.
Yes. So, because they refused to do anything, a plea of not guilty was entered on their behalf.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, all 14 members were tried together, which I thought was odd. The reason behind it was going to be simpler to do one trial with all the same people, all the same testimony, all the same witnesses, all the same stuff, instead of having 14 separate trials of the same thing, and the media was starting to attach onto this, and so we have one, it's going to affect the other, and none of them were participating.
I'm going to tell you right now, this is the part that you did tell us about.
Yeah, because they had to
people being
remodel
tried.
the courtroom to fit them all.
Yeah, you told me that. You didn't tell me about the fucking rest of it, Jackie.
I know, I was like, I've talked about this.
This part, the remodeling of the courthouse.
Because that's just crazy. They literally remodeled it to fit 14 defendants.
That's the craziest part of this story, Jackie.
Yeah. I feel like in America, we would have broke it down to multiple trials before that happened.
Oh, well, the thing is, all of them would have their own legal representation as well.
Yes.
It would be very different.
So, the trial lasted 58 days. It ended in September of 2024. Well, the prosecution called 60 witnesses, and, well, all 14 of them did nothing but laugh and make comments and scoff at things that were being said.
What?
Yeah, the whole time. But more interesting than that, so we have everybody separated into male and female prisons.
Uh-huh.
And they've been separated since they got arrested. They didn't see each other again until the first day of trial. So instead of this being like a somber murder trial courtroom, it's more like a family reunion.
Fuck off.
Husbands and wives getting back together, seeing their kids for the first time, seeing family members in the courtroom.
Remember, they don't think they did anything wrong.
And to complicate matters, Samantha Schoenfish is pregnant, and she's been rejecting all medical intervention the entire time.
Oh, no. I'm uncomfortable.
And she still held strong in her faith and doing nothing wrong all of this, even with facing, like, the possibility of having a baby while in prison.
Wow. Okay.
Not a single one of them took any responsibility for Elizabeth's death. Stephen ranted about how he was in the Struhs house and he had no obligation to call for medical help. Yes, he was there, but it wasn't his house. He was at somebody else's house, so therefore he had no obligation to call for help for her, so he did nothing wrong.
He would have gotten off in America with that line.
Yeah, the justice was like, except for encouraging.
Yeah.
But Alexander Stevens said he was being a good child of God. And this is all absurd. He is a brother of Christ. And that Elizabeth's death wasn't inevitable, but her healing and resurrection is. His sister Acacia added, I do believe she will rise again. God's timing is not for me to question. The closest anyone came to remorse for what they did to Elizabeth was when Jason cried as he said, my biggest regret is watching her suffer through this whole ordeal. Then he said this and ruined it all. To all of you, it looks like God has failed, but I know Elizabeth is only sleeping and I will see her again because God has promised me she is healing. Hate him.
Do you know what that reminds me of, though? Did you ever watch that? I think it's like Love Always Wins or something with Mother God and how she was drinking colloidal silver.
No.
So I highly suggest it because it happened in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it was called. Anyway, so she was drinking colloidal silver to try to, like, make her feel better or whatever. She deadass turned blue. She turned blue and she died, I think, from liver failure. And the people, grown-ass adults, kept her body and would, like, pray over her and stuff, saying that she was going to be resurrected. And And they also had one of those like electronic meter things and would put it up to her and be like, look, you guys, you can tell she stood there. It's like, she's full of fucking metal. What are you expecting?
Okay.
That's exactly
like the same vibe.
Yikes. Yikes.
Very similar vibe.
Yeah.
Ugh. So while trial did end in September, a verdict and sentence from Justice Martin Burns did not come until February of 2025 because the judge needed to take everything into account and come with a sentence for each person individually.
Yeah.
At sentencing, Jayde was allowed to give a victim impact statement, and she started it off by addressing Justice Burns. These people only wanted to control my family and myself and everything that we did, feeding off the power it made them feel, eventually pushing my father to his most vulnerable moments to trust in them so they could play God. She then turned to face the members of the saints and her parents in the dock. Your religious narrative cannot hide the unforgivable and irreversible impact you have made on my family. You took Elizabeth's life. You had no right, and on Judgment Day, God will see you for what you truly are. She then said directly to her parents, you have a lot to answer for and a lot of accountability to take on.
I kind of love that she like threw God and his judgment back in their face, though.
I do enjoy that for her. Snaps Jayde. Jayde went on to tell the court that she keeps Elizabeth's ashes in an urn, which now sits in her living room. Also, how she organized Elizabeth's funeral after her parents and brother refused to do anything with Elizabeth's body or for her while they sat in jail.
Jesus.
Also, on another note of that, Jayde was at work and she got a text message. She actually got a message from a reporter asking her if she knew the Struhs in Toowoomba and if this was her family.
No fucking way.
That is how she found out that Elizabeth died, by headlines hitting her from reporters and other people.
Wow. I think that makes sense because they were too busy singing.
Not a single member of the Saints or Elizabeth's parents spoke or showed any emotion during the 2-hour hearing for their sentencing.
I have a question. All the people who were convicted, are those the only members of this church? There was no other members?
No, there are other members. So obviously the rest of the Struhs siblings aren't listed in there because they're younger. We'll talk about them in a minute. Most of the Stevens children. I think that there's like a couple other members who aren't in here. But essentially almost every member is.
Okay. Because I just want to know if this was the downfall of the Saints.
Well, hold on. Jason and Brendan's charges of murder were acquitted.
You're lying.
Instead, being found guilty of manslaughter because, and I quote, there is no evidence that they knew she would die without her insulin. Which I personally think is an absurd statement with everything we know.
My jaw hurts from how much I've had had it dropped on the floor.
You want me to keep going?
Ugh. Do I have a choice?
No. Jason and Carrie were sentenced to 14 years, with Carrie serving an extra 12 months for her parole violations. Jason got an extra 6 months for the same thing. Brendan Stevens was sentenced to 13 years. The judge told Brendan at sentencing, quote, you are a dangerous, highly manipulative individual, and the authorities will do well to keep that in mind upon your release from prison. Brendan's wife, Loretta, was sentenced to 9 years. Elizabeth's brother, Zachary, was sentenced to 6 years. The Stevens children, Alexander, Sebastian, Andrea, Acacia, Camilla, Therese, were all sentenced to 7 years. Kada Martin, Lachlan Schoenfish were also sentenced to 7 years, and Samantha Schoenfish was sentenced to 6 years. This right here is going to hold your rage, okay?
That's kind of small.
Jason and Carrie have to serve 80% of their sentences before they can apply for parole. while the other members will only have to serve half of their sentences before they will be eligible for parole. This includes the time that they have already served, meaning some members could only serve a few more months before being eligible to apply for parole this year.
This wasn't large enough for my rage, but I'll give you one Italian hand.
So Samantha Schoenfish, she will be eligible for parole within the next few months.
Did she have her baby yet?
I'm not sure on that. I couldn't find it in me to care enough to look for that.
Valid. Okay.
I thought about it, but I could not find the care inside of me to look for it.
You don't have to explain to me.
I hate them.
Period.
Jayde. Beautiful Jayde. She addressed the media outside the courthouse after sentencing.
It's been a long and hard 3 years. Not a moment has gone by that I haven't thought about my little sister, Elizabeth. I think the court made the right decision, and I'm relieved that those responsible were found guilty for their actions. Although we had a good outcome today, I have to acknowledge the system failed to protect Elizabeth in the first place. We are only here today because more wasn't done sooner to protect her or remove her from an incredibly unsafe situation in her own home.
So while Jayde Struhs celebrated her small win of justice for Elizabeth after her parents and other members of the Saints were convicted and sentenced, but she wasn't done getting justice for Elizabeth. Her next step, a civil claim against the Queensland Department of Child Safety, alleging that it failed in its duty to care for Elizabeth, believing they accepted that Jason would be capable of being her sole carer. Even after her hospitalization and after Carrie stating she'd do it again. They didn't take into account the immense pressure he would be under or that he delayed getting her treatment to the point of unconsciousness once. Jayde believes that that should have been the huge red flag. The civil claim goes on to list that Carrie should have been monitored closer after her parole. This is a good time to bring up that Carrie canceled a parole appointment that week while Elizabeth was lying on that mattress in the living room floor, claiming that she was sick. Ultimately, Jayde believes that Elizabeth should have never been allowed to return to that home and that her siblings should have been removed in that moment. Jayde's main goal with this civil claim is preventative measures. She wants them to think ahead more, have more resources, funding, anything so that this doesn't happen again. She also wants the department to take some accountability for what happened and that this system is failing children daily. Jayde is also currently fighting for her other siblings and to be able to take them in. She has the full support of her grandparents and other family members that had been cut off long ago by Carrie after she joined the Saints. The ripple effect of what this religious cult has done doesn't just stop at the Struhs and Stevens families. Kaida Martin's mom testified at the trial about how she begged her daughter not to join and how she was cut off permanently from her daughter within weeks of her daughter joining the Saints.
I mean, that's essentially what cult's duty, though, is completely try to isolate you.
Yeah. The snickering in the comments were so bad from members of the Saints while she was testifying that court was stopped multiple times to address it.
Like, I understand they were trying to, like, save time and all this stuff, but at this point, like, just fucking do it separately.
Yeah.
Ugh, okay.
I really feel for Lachlan's dad, though. He had sat down at the current affair, and he spoke about how he had begged his son not to join. But he also made sure that Lachlan knew that when this all went sideways and this all went south, that he and his mom would be there to welcome him back with open arms. That, of course, was before Elizabeth's death. And he says that he hasn't even been able to watch the interviews that Lachlan was giving with police because they do ask about his dad and they do talk to him about his family. And his dad and his mom said that they don't want to remember him for who he's become. They want to remember who he was before he joined the Saints. And so they just choose to not.
That's fair. I understand. But also, like, people who are that brainwashed, especially if they spend that little of time separated, and for all we know, they could all still be in the same prison together.
The men and the women are. Like, they're separated.
Yeah. I guarantee they're still practicing that quote-unquote faith.
The justice even So there's so many quotes about how until these people truly change their beliefs, nothing will change. They will not see that they did any wrong to Elizabeth until they see what they're believing is wrong.
I don't think they're going to. It's so rare for anyone who is in a cult-like setting, especially on a religious base type, to come back from that. There's still people today who were part of the Manson not following, oh my gosh, that still believe that he is this almighty person, and it's sad. It's sad.
So sad. And Lachlan's dad he was asked if he forgave him, and he goes, I can't. His quote was actually very poetic about, like, to forgive is to be divine, and he isn't divine, so he can't forgive. And he said, if you hurt me, I can forgive you. But when you hurt an innocent 8-year-old child, I'm not that child. I can't forgive you.
Period.
So and he also, I wish that I could, like, pop this off the top of my head. You know how, like, Australians have their really funny, weird ways of saying things?
Yes.
How he starts it off talking about him, I feel so much for his dad. And then Carrie's parents, they also do an interview in this, and how they haven't seen their grandkids in years, and she cut them off, and they were the bad people. And so all of these families who were cut off and who tried to do something, but Carrie swept away, they're all supporting Jayde. They're here for those kids. I'm glad that the remaining children, because they all are minors, which is why I don't have names for you. It took me a hot minute to find she had 7 brothers and sisters, because so many are still minors.
Yeah.
That it was hard to find.
Next question. Did all these kids get put into a foster system? I'm assuming.
So all the Stevens children are grown, because they all were charged.
I don't give a fuck about them.
But the Struhs children, I believe Jayde has them. Or Jayde, like, yes, they obviously were taken instantly until Jayde could get in there, but I think Jayde and her grandparents are working on getting the kids. I would assume someone in the family not associated with the Saints had the children, or at least DHS kept the kids for a minute till they were figuring out what was happening.
Where they could go and find a suitable living
I said
relative.
DHS like we're in the States, but y'all know what I meant.
Child Protective Services.
It was Department of Child Safety. So many lives destroyed because one man decided to play God and bring along a bunch of idiots for fun. So many people failed Elizabeth on so many levels. So before we get to my favorite part, did we get justice for Elizabeth? According to Jayde, we have gotten justice, and we're working on getting more. And I agree with Jayde. Getting a conviction of 14 people is pretty impressive. Yes. Having 14 people held accountable
that is so rare.
And not only that, on all manslaughter charges, basically. I'd have to... The U.S. could learn a lot from this.
Yes, they could.
So much, because I honestly, the only thing I can say that was done wrong was Elizabeth being returned to her house after the hospital. Was not more investigating and more done in that aspect for her.
I don't know. I think the lowering of their sentences is pretty shitty.
Yeah, I think that Jason and Brendan... I think Jason still should have been a murder charge, and I also think Carrie should have been a murder charge as her mother.
Yeah.
Regardless of her location in the house.
Absolutely.
But I'll take the win we got. I'm not happy about how much of their sentences they have to serve before they can get out.
Yeah. I'm just worried on what could happen once they get out also. Like, with the kids. And I imagine they're probably going to go straight back into...
And I'm hoping that Samantha and Lachlan's baby get taken. Lachlan's parents seem wonderful. I know you've shared a lot of thoughts on this.
You're welcome.
Do you have more thoughts on it?
I feel like I've been pretty vocal already on my thoughts. I don't think they're going to change. I think they're going to get out and continue to do exactly what they're doing. So hopefully no children end back up in their custody, and hopefully they just don't have more children.
Yeah.
Involved.
That's what I'm hoping for too there.
Unless somehow legally they can force like no contact or something. I don't know.
I just hope Jayde can get her siblings and...
Ugh, Jayde deserves the world.
She does. Elizabeth Struhs was a vibrant, beautiful little girl who had her whole life ahead of her. She told everyone at school she wanted to be a doctor so she could help kids with diabetes. She had such a big, kind, and caring heart, and so many friends and teachers at her school are going to miss her smile and her big personality every day at school. Truly, I wish I had more pictures or videos or information about her.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, but her parents were not that open in sharing of things like that, and Jayde has said a lot about her, and I love every interview I get to watch of Jayde speak about her sister because she loved her so incredibly much.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's why I'm wearing pink today, because me and homegirl, we got the same favorite color.
I would have worn pink with you.
I'm
or
sorry.
Purple. I can't believe this.
I forgot to text you. So, even though today's episode was a lot, we hope you enjoyed it. And even if you didn't, we're still going to do this every single week. So go ahead and hit that subscribe, follow, like button. Because, I mean, haters can give us love too. And if you're not already following us on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, go do it. We're hilarious. And we post, we're trying to post a lot more things over there.
Mm-hmm. We just have lives and like...
We do. And I
full-time
overthink every
jobs.
social media post, so...
You what?
I overthink every social media post, so... There's that.
That's true. She's very type A.
I am.
I'm not. Clearly.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sit in that rage all day. Have fun.
We will catch you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will see you later. Love you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.